Skyrim is coming to one of two major streaming platforms. That is to be believed if we buy into a cornucopia of different sources and articles all pointing towards the same thing. But will Netflix, which once held the rights, be able to forge a path forward by dropping The Witcher as fast as possible? Or will it go to Paramount, which has its own issues in that they've already failed once with Halo? We'll get into all of it and explain every bit. Hang tight, fasten in, let's get going. Hello and welcome everybody. Boy, do we have a big video for you today. Heck of a show coming up. Joining us today to navigate these interesting waters and explain how all of these points connect is the one and only, the investigative reporter for That Part Place, and now having his own YouTube channel, Jonas J. Campbell. Welcome to the show once more.
Hello. I used to be just a writer like you until I took an arrow to the knee.
All right. Fantastic. Well, you can already tell he knows what he's talking about when it comes to Skyrim, also the Elder Scrolls. Jonas, how many hours would you say you have in Skyrim and the Elder Scrolls games?
Oh, I would say at least 2 months of full productivity have been lost to Skyrim conservatively.
So, and all of it was just waiting to be unleashed in this video today with this beautiful audience out there listening. It all had a purpose, Jonas. That's what I'm saying. You were actually investing your time wisely. Who would have thought?
My mother would be so proud.
All right, well, we're going to get right into this because this is some wild stuff. You're going to hear it exclusively here on the WDW Pro channel. I don't think anybody else is covering this, and we're going to walk through sort of the story of how we even came to figure some of this stuff out. So hang tight. It's going to get interesting. But we'll start with an article from comicbook.com, this by Logan Moore, all the way back last year, January 1st, 2021. And then I'm going to catch you up because that's odd, right? It's odd to start with an article that's this old. But back in January of last year, it was said that the Elder Scrolls Netflix series reportedly is in development. And you might say to yourself, well, this is comicbook.com. You know, this is not a trade publication. This is not verified truth. Well, let's skip down. We don't even read the first two paragraphs. Let's just get down out of that, okay? All you need from the first two paragraphs is that Netflix is looking to work with Bethesda on the Elder Scrolls. Here's what we really want. As for where the rumor stems from, it comes by way of one Daniel Richtman. In the past, he has proven to be a pretty reliable source and has had scoops related to the film and television industries ahead of time. So while you should definitely take this report with the usual grain of salt, there could very well be some validity to it, some validity. And that's where it was just kind of left. Like, all of these sorts of websites covered this stuff, right? We could go find a dozen or more of these articles covering what one Mr. Richtman had said about Netflix wanting to do the Elder Scrolls. And so at the time, I didn't cover this for any website that I was working for. At the time, it was That Part Place, but I did not cover this because, well, Netflix was working on The Witcher. And I didn't see any urgency in them trying to jump into another sword and sorcery item. So, you know, I just kind of sat there and said, well, that's interesting. We'll see what happens. All right, fast forward, and we are now at a point where it's time to look a little deeper. The reason for that, Jonas, is because I received a message from a source who is extremely well connected. And I got this message last week. But again, I didn't really know what to do with it. And essentially what I received was information about consultation data for some of these big companies. Now, when I say that, what I'm talking about is that these major entertainment companies, they don't go into creating a show or creating a movie blind. That's not what they do. They hire people to go do the research, to go find out what the market looks like, what do people want to see, and they dig in deep into this. And I just so happened to get some info about what's going on in terms of what is labeled the sword and sorcery genres. Jonas, am I making sense so far? Have I lost anybody, you think?
Absolutely. My only question is, did this person come upon you on the road and hand you a piece of parchment with a black hand on it?
Now that you say it, that's actually pretty accurate. They had a glowing ring and a very long staff. I was worried. But so the message I received, though, and I'm going to paraphrase this on the fly because I don't want to give away even a writing style here. But essentially, there were some, there's a company that does a lot of research into what the market's interested in. They do it for Netflix, for HBO. They don't do it for Disney, actually. They do it for Viacom, etc. And so they went through many different concepts inside this genre, right? We would probably call this the fantasy genre. And what they discovered was that when you broke this down into video games, there were two standouts. And those standouts for market recognition, let's say, brand recognition, that those two standouts were The Witcher and the Elder Scrolls, but specifically Skyrim. So not just the Elder Scrolls, but specifically Skyrim. And when it came to these two properties, Skyrim was significantly more well-known and had significantly better stats with the market than The Witcher. All right, let's continue on in this, and then I'm going to hand it over to Jonas to get your thoughts on all of this stuff I'm saying. Here's the thing. According to this source, there are companies, entertainment companies, who are looking at the success of Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. They're looking at Rings of Power, which they must think is some type of success. There's another show I'm looking at right now. What else was the other one? What was it?
Wheel of Time?
Wheel of Time, yeah. Something I don't even follow at all. But companies want to emulate that. Okay. Here's the big deal about all of that. According to the research that was done for some of these companies and put out there by these firms that do this, Skyrim is the franchise. It's the franchise if you want to do a live action swords and sorcery show for streaming. It's heads and tails, far and away the biggest thing that you could do. And so that information was sent to me, and I said, okay, well, it's already in development, I think. So, you know, what do you do with that? Jonas, is that surprising at all to you?
Not surprising at all. But my goodness, it took them long enough. Skyrim is a big open world with a lot of lore that they can put any kind of character right in the front and do whatever they want with. It is completely malleable because it's an open character creation system where the player gets to decide so much about who they are. You can have all of these different factions. There is no specific good. There is specific evil, but I suppose that has its charms as well.
Sure. And, you know, all the things you're saying are things that are in this message to me. I'm just being maybe overly, but I'm trying to be very protective of this source. And so I'm not going into all of the details of why the Skyrim property is so inviting to anybody who can get it. But again, I just looked at it and said, well, you know, Netflix is already making it. I heard this last year, so why do I care? All right, let's pause from that and let's move to another topic. And then we're going to come back and we're going to hit this. And then all of this is going to make sense for everybody. So audience, hang in there. I promise you. I know it's a Wednesday. I know it's a hump day, but we're gonna hurdle this thing. All right, so the next step we need to talk about is that let's say that Netflix is working on a Skyrim show. Fine, whatever. However, Paramount was working on a show for a video game that is also owned by Microsoft. And guess what? Since the report about Skyrim being part of Netflix came out, Microsoft bought the company that owned Skyrim or owns Skyrim, Bethesda. And Microsoft already has a streaming relationship with Paramount. So I remembered this article. It sounds like Halo was a massive hit for Paramount Plus in 2022. #1 TV show on the platform. Interesting, right? Right?
Right.
Jonas, could you read the paragraph, or it's really just a sentence, before the tweet that's referenced in this article?
The official Game Awards Twitter account dropped this news earlier in the week, apparently sourcing the Wall Street Journal for the data, although we've yet to come across the article, as you can see below.
Jonas, how hard do you think it is to find an article?
Let me see right now. What's the name of it?
Well, let me just say, the Game Awards cites the Wall Street Journal, and I looked. I can't find this.
Absolutely not.
And so, given that I can't find it, and you've got these articles coming out and proclaiming it, and yet at the same time, they can't find it, and given what we know about everything surrounding the Halo show, I'm going to call that this is, well, this is just, what would you say, bumpkiss on this?
What's the date on this?
Oh, this one was put out in the 10th of January, 2023 by Fraser Gilbert, which, by the way, sounds like two last names to me, but, you know, have at it.
We might need to pause here, but I have seen some evidence, very scant evidence, but some evidence that Halo Season 2 is in production.
Well, actually, we have some information about that, and we're going to pull that up now. Again, everybody, hang in there. We're going to get back to Skyrim. We promise. We promise. Let's take a look, though. Here's what we know. Go ahead and read that for us, Jonas, real quick.
David Nevins, Chief Content Officer of Scripted Originals for Paramount Plus and Chairman and CEO of Showtime, believes that the show's intense subject matter, stories of resistance against authoritarian regimes, are timely and compelling, and not the stuff of most video game adaptations. It has a political worldview that people tap into and relate to, Nevins says. For science fiction, it's got a political sophistication that is resonating in these times.
Wow, it's almost like these people play this sort of spiel on a loop when they go into franchises to destroy them. I got to give them credit. I mean, the fact that they could say this over and over every time they do it, it's impressive. But to give everybody a backstory, the Halo series came out many years in pre-production, many years in development, came out on Paramount. It's a big deal. It was intended to really drive up interest in the franchise as Halo Infinite, another, well, the most expensive video game of all time in terms of development, was released on the Xbox Series consoles. One problem here, they didn't care at all about the source material. They completely redid this. Master Chief took off his helmet, which is a big no-no in the Halo world, and he did it like in episode 1 or 2. I don't remember now, but it was this. I mean, it was garbage. And everybody, you know, everybody who's sane and not in the access media, they were saying this is absolute garbage. Now, remember, we've just been told, though, that what, Jonas? How good was it?
It was forgettable.
No, Jonas. No, it was #1, remember? You've already forgotten. It was #1 on all of Paramount. It's just so unbelievable, isn't it?
Now, I will, to be fair, Paramount Plus was not hitting on all cylinders at this time.
Okay, granted. However, name me some more of the major properties on Paramount Plus in 2022, which was just a month ago. What else we got?
Oof. Whatever Star Trek they were dropping.
Okay, I'll grant you that. Oof. I can see that Halo would beat it, but everything connected to Yellowstone, and all of those spinoffs, right?
Yes.
Are we really saying
Yellowstone is a powerhouse? This article has to be 1890. I forget my years.
1883, right?
1883. So close.
Come on, get back in your history class. All right, everybody, hang with us now. We're going to show you how silly all of this is. Ready? What happens to David Nevins? What happens? Oh, the guy who was in charge of Halo. Ouch. Oversight for the various divisions that Nevins led will now be split between Chris McCarthy, Tom Ryan, and George Cheeks because he's out. Oh, man. It's almost, wait a minute. But if you're really successful, wouldn't the company want to keep you? Well, the good news is they are indeed going to make a second season of Halo. This thing was announced before the show ever came out, but they don't have a release date yet. It's been delayed, and it seems to me that it's very likely, given the reception, given that they fired the guy who was in charge of the show, it seems very likely to me that they identified there were significant problems with it. And I don't believe for a second that it was the #1 show on Paramount Plus, because that comes to us from the Game Awards, which cites an article that doesn't exist. And then everybody else covered that, and it doesn't exist. Now, all of this matters. We're going to get to why it matters, but we needed to understand that the Halo show was not the success that you might have been led to believe if you had read those articles and didn't realize, oh, wait, this is based on absolutely nothing, because this article doesn't exist on the Wall Street Journal. Jonas, hanging with me?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. All right. Let's move on now, and we're going to show how this has a connection with the one and only Skyrim. If we go to Screen Rant, this is by Thomas Bacon, December 28th, 2022. The Witcher prequel couldn't have come at a worse time. The Witcher Blood Origin is a disappointing addition to the Netflix franchise, underlining the fact the world of The Witcher really is in big trouble. Now, here's what changed sort of what I was going to report on today. In fact, I had something totally different planned. I was going to report on an issue with Splash Mountain. That all got changed because from another source, I was informed that Netflix now has determined, at least their leadership has determined, that The Witcher is in such a bad condition going forward after the loss of Henry Cavill and after the reception of this prequel that they're ready to drop it. They're ready to drop The Witcher, and we'll talk about why they're in such a hurry. Jonas, first paragraph, take it away for us.
The Witcher Blood Origins, Netflix's official prequel series to The Witcher, really couldn't have been released at a worse time. Starring Henry Cavill and Freya Ellen as Geralt of Rivia and his young ward Ciri, the first season of The Witcher was a big hit for Netflix. Well, hit for Netflix. Third-party analytics indicated it was the top 0.2% of TV series in terms of demand, and it was hardly a surprise when Netflix renewed the show and went one step further, announcing their intention to turn the series into the foundation of a major franchise.
And all that was great until who left?
Henry Cavill.
That's right. And now everything has fallen apart. And so it's no longer even, they can't do anything with this. They've brought they're doing a 4th season of the main line, but the prequel's a failure. The 4th season continues to look like it's going to deviate from the source material, which is the exact same thing that Halo did and caused Halo, despite being referenced to an article in the Wall Street Journal that doesn't exist. Don't know who came up with that grand idea, but it's the same issue here, right? They got away from the source material. Cavill leaves because of it. The fans leave because of it. Netflix now is sitting on an issue where they've got to decide, what are we going to do? And the reason that they have to decide that, here's the point that we're trying to get at that connects all of it. Microsoft owns now Skyrim. They own the Elder Scrolls. They own Bethesda. And Microsoft owns Skyrim, and it was already in development at Netflix. And the source that laid that out, let's just say, is very, very, very often accurate. We also know that according to all the research from these consultation firms out there that do the research for these companies, that Skyrim is the most coveted, the most, holds the most potential of any sword and sorcery franchise out there. And that's a big deal given the world we're in, where some streaming services have an awesome sword and sorcery fantasy genre show to carry it, and some do not. Those are Paramount, and now with The Witcher down and out, Netflix. Ignore Disney Plus for the moment. I don't think they're interested. That's a totally different topic, but I don't think Disney is interested. Now, Netflix had it. Here's the question, and I have not been able to figure this out yet. But the question is, if Netflix had it and they chose to go with The Witcher, do they still have the rights to put it out there? Because what I am told is that Paramount wants to continue the relationship with Microsoft, and they want to do Skyrim if it's possible. And Microsoft is in a rush to get this done because guess what's coming out? The Elder Scrolls 6. And Microsoft would like to do the same thing they did with Halo, although that was unsuccessful. They would like to bring out the Elder Scrolls 6 with a streaming show to help promote it. And we also have a timeline for the Elder Scrolls 6. We basically know that it's going to be coming out sometime around 2026. Aren't you ready to sink another 2 months of productivity into that?
Absolutely, if I'm not still playing whatever re-release of Skyrim they've just come out with.
So, here's the deal, everybody. Here's the deal. Microsoft's holding on to a huge, the biggest fantasy franchise that's still available, right? Lord of the Rings is the biggest, but good luck with that. That's a huge mess. All of that's a mess. But they've got Skyrim. They want to use it. There's a timeline. They need this thing coming out around 2026. Sure, the game might be delayed, okay? It might go to 27 or 28, whatever. They can't operate based on that conjecture. They need this thing out on a streaming show. Paramount wants it. Netflix seemed to have had it. But does Netflix still have it because Paramount wants it? And then there's the other caveat. Guess what else? Paramount already screwed up with Halo. So does Netflix then throw away The Witcher as fast as possible to get Skyrim out onto their service and protect it from potentially going to Paramount? Jonas, what do you think about all this? This is, I mean, connecting all of this with all the different sources I had, I was like, oh my gosh, this is, you know, how are we going to get through all of this roadmap to get there? But what are your thoughts on where this might land and what it might look like when it lands there?
You know, there's so much going on here, and in my research for our discussion today, I came across so much that says that maybe they're actually working very hard to retool. Maybe they're working very hard to retool the Halo series. They fired their showrunner before season 2 was even
exactly
on the schedule, even publicly announced, and then it was announced immediately afterwards.
Hey Jonas, would you fire your showrunner before the first season was even concluded if it was the #1 show on the streaming platform?
Oh my, no, I'd call him right back. Please,
it's like firing your championship coach, right? It's like you win the Super Bowl and immediately fire him. That doesn't happen. Come on.
In the era when TV is what makes or breaks a single streaming service, if you've got a great show that's bringing in the figures, you give them the Taylor Sheridan treatment. You give them the Shonda Rhimes treatment. You give them
but Jonas, according to the article that doesn't exist, Sheridan was defeated by Halo, remember?
Sheridan was only defeated by the deal that left Yellowstone on Peacock for
Well, that's a great point.
Insane reasons.
All right, so let's say that, and let me say this too. So a bunch of these points I know are absolutely true. And there's a few that, like this part about Paramount wanting it, but does Netflix still have the rights to use the pre-production that they were in that they never went with because they chose to go with The Witcher instead? Like that stuff I don't know what to do with yet. I'm still researching it. But wherever this lands, what do you think a Skyrim, specifically Skyrim, not Elder Scrolls, but specifically Skyrim, what would that look like? Like, what does that show even appear to be wherever it lands?
I'd say it looks like Lord of the Rings, but starved and a little bit more morally depraved.
Yeah, well, you know, there is that. It may have a few more dragons than Lord of the Rings, right?
Oh, absolutely. Evil mages, they're going to up the magic use up to 11. First of all, it's malleable, just like D&D. It is something that you can take whatever they want to do and put it right in there, and they will not have violated the canon. Almost.
All right, and Jonas, question to you on this. Since you are the Skyrim expert here, you know that with Halo and with some of these other properties, they've deviated from the source material and fans didn't enjoy that. So with Skyrim, do you think that it would be wise for a Netflix or a Paramount to continue to deviate, or should they stick with the story exactly as it is? And if they do stick with the story, then how do they keep it exciting, given that everybody already knows how that ends if you played the game?
No, they should stay with it. They should stay exactly to the source material. There's so much there that they have really no reason to deviate. The story of a dragonborn, a person who can take on the attributes of dragons they defeat, and join all these different guilds and interact with these different factions within the world. They have no reason to deviate, and it will be hard for them to really violate this open world mechanic that I can't even fathom a way that they could screw this up, for lack of a better term.
Oh, they'll find a way, Jonas. Don't you doubt it. They will. Where there's a will, man, where there's a will. All right. But
for modern audiences.
That's right. So the question then, they'll bring in real world politics. That'll be the thing, right? It has to reflect the real world. No, it really doesn't. It needs to reflect Tamriel. All right. So Jonas, things that you would most be looking forward to in a Skyrim TV show. What would you be most looking forward to seeing? If you were giving the advice to the writers, like what do they have to hit? What's got to be there?
Even if they do make it political, they need to make it from the soldier's perspective. They need to keep it an everyman, a character that is probably a mercenary and does not care at all about the politics of the world they're in. They just want to go out and do the job, get paid. And if we're following the Mandalorian model here, we'll probably have a plucky sidekick or a small child that they have to take care of.
Something cute to sell the merchandise.
That's right.
And how many times can they do the arrow to the knee joke, do you think?
I'm thinking once within the first 10 minutes.
And then perhaps 2 or 3 times every single episode thereafter if it hits.
If it plays like the game, absolutely.
I was once like you until I took an arrow to the knee. That sounds more like Dracula, I think.
Hey, if they Jonas, do the DLC.
Oh, well, tell me about the DLC. I don't know much about that.
Well, the base game of Skyrim, the main quest, which you almost never even have to get to, is the Dragonborn defeating the Dragonborn, discovering that they have the ability to absorb the souls of dragons, and they have to travel to High Hrothgar to meet the Greybeards who can teach them how to harness the power of the dragon. It almost sounds like an ancient Eastern epic in that way, but it's very Norse. And you have all of the classic Tolkien style races, although the dwarfs are just really ancient elves that died away. There are small differences from the Tolkien lore, but it's heavily inspired by the fantasy that we've all grown up familiar with.
Now, there's also 2 races there's like a cat people and a lizard people kind of thing going on. So how bad is that going to look when they put it over there on Paramount?
Well, I'm the kind of guy that likes to be able to travel wherever. So I always played as an Argonian, which is the lizard people, so that I could just go into the underwater areas and not worry about my breathing stats.
Right. Well, maybe that will carry the day for Netflix or Paramount. Maybe they can take us into the underwater areas as an Argonian then.
And I will say, for any of you fans who are familiar with the rest of the series, I only played Skyrim, so I was never in the regions where the Khajiit and the Argonians were.
Does anybody even play the Khajiit? I mean, let's get real. Does anybody actually pick those?
There's got to be somebody.
No. Well, yeah, like the Tiger King or whoever it was, he's playing that. But all right, Jonas, final thoughts. We need to wrap it up. Final thoughts on who's going to get this, Paramount or Netflix, and how bad is it that Netflix has already screwed up The Witcher so bad, it sounds like they're trying to throw it away to get to Skyrim.
The only thing I would have changed on the Netflix announcement is I would have just said the series is ending in season 3. Now, if you can get a hold of Skyrim, I mean, kudos to you. Now, don't mess this up.
Henry Cavill in it or not? Is he the Dragonborn?
Hey, there you go. Apparently, he's up for grabs if you can get him before Warhammer 40K starts shooting.
There you go. You heard it here first, people. Henry Cavill, he's the Dragonborn. All right, before we get out of here, Jonas, let us know, you've got some big news. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with you on this great, big, beautiful World Wide Web?
All right. Well, I've been looking at what you've been doing, and I've been looking at what Valiant Renegade is doing, and I thought I would do that too from a much smaller scale. So I decided
poor fool. You've chosen the wrong path, my friend.
You have chosen unwisely.
That's right.
So today, with a little work, maybe a little too much work, I've put out the first video on the Jonas J. Campbell YouTube channel. And that is
fantastic.
Everything Woke about Velma episodes 1 and 2. And
it's a 15-hour extravaganza.
Oh, it's longer than the series itself.
Oh my God. Well, and it's down in the description as well. So ladies and gentlemen, if you would just go down there and click that, make sure to hit all those other fancy little buttons below the screen as well. All the good ones, not that thumbs down. Don't you do it. But yeah, make sure to click over there and go check out Jonas's new channel. I am sure it is going to take off and be fantastic. And we look forward to all the new content that you're going to put out.
Thank you very much. I strive to be worthy of my post.
All right. If you like this video, click like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Trust me, it's fun to click that notification bell. And as always, keep having fun.